So how do you go about, even starting this security risk analysis? So everything depends, right? So it depends on the size of your organization, whether you're a small practice or a big hospital or a specialty, not really hosting anything and stuff. And then it depends on the size of your organization, in the sense like, how many sites you have, and whether you are having on-prem servers, or like whether you are using just a cloud-based services and whatnot, just with your laptop and mobile phones. And then also it depends on your complexity of technology and whatnot. So your security risk analysis is going to vary widely, right, based on some of the things that we are talking about. And also, of course, depending on whether you have a single site or you have multiple site, whether you have the same system or multiple systems and whatnot. So the general requirement with respect to the security risk analysis is all of these areas. It might sound a little bit exhaustive, right? Like, but to conduct a comprehensive security risk assessment, these are like some of the things you need to be considering. So if you are doing it yourself, you definitely want to think about some of these things that are listed here. I'm not going to go through this individually, just in the interest of time. But as Aditi said, like we have the handout available for you to download. If you have any questions, specific questions and things, we'll be happy to answer after our prepared presentation, or like even we will be available via email to answer any questions. So the couple of things that I wanted to bring up to your notice, one is number two, that is policies and procedures. So a lot of times when we go into any organization, we don't see any security policies or procedures and whatnot. So this is something actually you definitely need to have. So what essentially does that policy contain? So it contains about your overall requirements for managing the patient data. It would say, how would you provide access to a system? How would you terminate a user? And how would you handle the data? How would you classify it? How do you back it up? So the whole 9 yards that requires for maintaining the security of the data. So that is one. So we don't see that a lot. So the best way to probably get started on that one, if you're a small to medium size, we do have several templates just in case if you're interested. So start off with a template instead of creating everything from scratch. Start with the template, update the required sections, and then at least you will have you will be in a pretty decent place to start with. And the next one is essentially the physical security. Most of the places that we are conducting assessment now, like they don't have any on-prem or on-site servers and other like equipments. Most of them are all on the cloud, and they probably have some kind of a wireless router that gets plugged into their ISP. That's pretty much it. And then they all work off of their laptop or workstation, right? So in that case, the physical security requirement are little bit minimal, right? And depending on your environment, again, as is going back to our earlier this thing, not all of them is applicable for everybody, depending on the scoping exercise that we do initially. So some of them are going to be applicable, some of them are not. Right. So the way like we kind of cover as part of our security risk analysis is like we take this like 6 major areas, right? So your EHR system, your desktop laptops, your mobile devices, and your networking. And if you have any removable media and stuff, so those are like some of the areas. And then also, your other system that are talking to your core EHR system, say for example, your the patient portal and any kind of third-party services that connects to your core EHR system, including the HIE, the HIE exchange, information and whatnot. So those are like some of the things that we kind of cover as part of our this assessment. So couple of things on this particular topic. we've got a lot of calls from our physician community and also hospital saying that, like, they are using a certified EHR, they are using a cloud-based EHR, so they are not required to do the security risk analysis. So that is definitely a myth. We've seen in a lot of audit, people fail their audit because they said, like, they are using a certified EHR. Why should they conduct the security risk assessment? And also they said, hey, okay, cloud-based EHR, so they are responsible. Our cloud vendor is responsible, whether you use Athena Health or Cerner or whatnot, right? So they said, like, they are responsible. So both of them are wrong. So as an entity who is subscribing to some of the services, you have to conduct your own assessment. So the scope for that might be a little bit different from what the EHR vendor and other vendors are covering. But for you, like, you need to have your own independent security risk assessment done. Right. So let's quickly go over some of the areas that you need to be covering if you are conducting the security risk analysis. So especially when it comes to EHR, no matter whether you are using on-prem EHR or like you're using a cloud-based EHR, you definitely need to configure it according to your the policies and procedures that we discussed earlier. So what do we mean by configuration? So for example, are you going to allow remote connections to your EHR? And if yes, then like there are some configuration settings that you could do, or like you can restrict the connection based on certain IP addresses and stuff. So all of this security related configuration. So in terms of defining the password requirement, defining the timeout parameters, updating the patches and whatnots, all of these things, you are responsible for it. So you need to, as a customer, like, you need to make sure that you are configuring it according to your requirements and according to what is the best practice and stuff. And then again, like, creating roles within the EHR system and assigning them so that like only people have access based on need to know, right? So that's very important as well. So that will be your responsibility. Although there are certain shared responsibility with your cloud provider. So a lot of the things that are highlighted here are your responsibility, including reviewing the logs regularly to make sure that only the right people are accessing the data and right people are doing what they are supposed to be doing. Right, so that is all the requirement. So all of the things that we are talking about here requires some sort of evidence for you to maintain, right? So for example, if you're conducting audit log reviews, your responsibility is to demonstrate that in case if there is any CMS audit. So what you need to be doing is you need to be downloading this audit log files and then annotating the log files if there are any kind of anomalies that you see. Or like what you need to be doing is like you will be communicating with probably your IT team and other vendors, and so those are like some of the evidence that you need to maintain in case if there are any audit. So it's not enough to say, hey, okay, so we have done the review, and then they are going to be asking, the auditor are going to be asking, what was your process, and what, can you show us some evidence of how you went about doing the audits and stuff. So moving on to the next one, desktops and laptops. Here are again the best practices that you want to make sure that you have in place. Of course, when it comes to desktop and laptop, definitely we do recommend some sort of advanced antivirus and EDR solution, right? We call it endpoint detection and response software, so that like when there is any kind of attack that's happening. Most of the time, if you see like all the hacks and all the data breach news that we read, everything starts with some kind of end device that is not protected properly. So a hacker gets into your network through the weakest point, right? So that's why the antivirus and the malware is all like kind of critical. And then making sure that you update your Windows or Apple, whatever you run, whatever OS that you run, making sure you update them. And if you have a large group of people, making sure you have some sort of RMM, the remote monitoring methods, to make sure that you are updating all the OS and the patches regularly, and timing out, logging off people if they are inactive after, say, like 10-15 minutes is usually the best practice. So you don't want to leave your computer on and walk away to do something else and then come back and see somebody else has logged in, right? So and also the most important part is there is no unencrypted patient data on your desktop and laptop. So essentially the reason we are recommending that is if you are going to be encrypting your laptop and desktop, then the burden of proof is just to demonstrate that you have used the right technology to encrypt it, right? So if you haven't encrypted it, then the burden of proof is to make sure that data was not accessed by anybody else, even if you, let's say, you lose your laptop or somebody breaks into your office and stuff, right? So that's why the encryption is something that we definitely recommend, especially for laptops, desktops, and also your mobile devices and things. So the next item here is, like, of course, more mobile-based device, like say your phones, right? So texting and emailing, checking your emails with that potentially might contain some kind of patient data and stuff is becoming very, very common. So obviously what you want to do is, like, you want to have some sort of, they call it MDM, a mobile device management solution, whether it is your company provided phone or even personal BYOD, bring your own device type of thing. So you want to make sure that all these devices are kind of in a way monitored, and you could do some kind of a remote wipe if the devices are lost, and you do have some advanced protection, including password and the encryptions and whatnot, right? Those are like some of the things we will be looking at when we are doing assessment of the mobile and tablet device. Then the next one is, of course, the networking devices. Even if you are a small shop, you're going to have some sort of wireless router, firewall, and whatnot. So you want to make sure that some of the things that are listed in here are all covered as part of security risk analysis, and you have a better understanding of those devices, right? So the scanning of your networking device, if you have some kind of a public interface, VPNs and whatnot, and then most of these equipment come with default username password. You can just Google their look at the make and model, and then Google the default username password. If you don't change it, then anybody can access it. And then of course, the firmware updates and configuring the locks and encrypting the traffic, and all those things are pretty important as well. So this one is also a major issue in the healthcare space. So that's why we kind of calling it out separately, removable media. So especially like thumb drive, USB, and backup tape, CDs, any kind of media that stores, even portable hard disk and stuff. So any kind of media that stores patient data and stuff, everything needs to be in scope. And then what you want to do is definitely want to encrypt them. So even if you lose them, nobody can access it unless they have the encryption key. And then when you're disposing it off, you want to make sure that you follow certain guidelines to dispose it off safely, so that, like, even if somebody else get access to those media, they won't be able to recover the data. And then especially when it comes to this removable media, you need to maintain an inventory of all these assets within your organization, and make sure that you have a custodian for each one of them, right? Then the next one is pretty much everything else, right? So whether you're talking about emails, whether you're talking about health information exchange platform and the patient portal and whatnot, everything else, right? So you want to make sure that all these integration points are also secured as part of your analysis, and you have some kind of comfort level in terms of allowing them to have access back and forth to your environment, right? So those are like, including copiers, printers, we're calling it out. The reason being, we've seen few incidents where the copiers were disposed of without properly sanitizing. So the company, which it was CVS in this case, ended up paying some penalty because the hard disk that was in the copier printer were not wiped out properly. Right. So those are like some of the things that you want to consider as you are, conducting the security risk assessment. I think like we specifically calling out the security awareness training. So that is, one of the key part of the security risk assessment. So no matter what, whoever is handling the patient data, you want to have some sort of program to train them, and also, send them some phishing emails and see whether they are clicking on it by mistake. If yes, then that means they probably need a little bit additional training so that they don't click that link next time around.
For more information, click on the link below or visit databrackets.com.